aware of your products. The press always likes to cover things that are sort of milestones are moving very quickly. And the last one, obviously, is it's better for valuations. When you're raising money, if you're moving more quickly, it's easy to raise at a higher valuation, or if the company is being acquired. So when I talk about sort of speed here, I definitely know that sort of Vietnam is not the same as Silicon Valley, California. And some of the things I say, oh, try this or try that, I think you might say, well, that will never work in Vietnam. That may be true. But I think it's sometimes just kind of aspirational, and maybe try it, or maybe some of this will be applied, not all of it. The other thing I like to say is, oftentimes when I'm working with countries with sort of developing economies, people will list a lot of hurdles. There's no online payment or something like that. There's no co-location facilities. But I think it's a double-edged sword. It's a challenge and a hurdle, but it's also an opportunity. Because if something is slowing you down, if you fixed it, you could then maybe sell it to all the other entrepreneurs out there that would make their lives faster. And I've seen this happen again and again, happen in Jordan, happen in other places, where people saw an obstacle that they were facing, and they said, I'm going to fix that obstacle, and then turn it into good business for them. Okay, next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about 4 different companies I did, and they all follow this sort of very, very rapid pattern, this pattern of raising money in one day. And people are going to say, you can never do that in Vietnam. But I just met super great person from IDG Ventures, so maybe you can chat him up afterwards and you can get the money right now. Second thing is sort of hiring your core team and getting started. I think there's a lot of opportunity. I see there's resources and people in Vietnam, and I understand people can move to new opportunities quickly, so I think sort of that's a potential there. Third is building products. I often advise people, I recommend 3 months. I don't recommend saying, okay, here's what I want to build, it will take me a year. Instead, I recommend saying, what can I build in 3 months? The reason is, a lot of times what you think might be a great product, you go out and spend a year building it, then you launch it and you find out people don't actually like it. So if you can do it in a very short amount of time, even a minimal version, what they call a minimal viable proposition. If you just have a minimal version, we'll talk about this a little bit later, and then you find out sooner that your idea is good or not good. Okay, next slide. So the other thing I often hear is people say, oh, somebody else already invented that. That already exists. Someone else is already doing that. And I just like to say, well, maybe, but the 4 companies I did, there was somebody doing something in that space for all of those already. The first one was this thing called computer telephony, linking telephones and databases. At the time we launched, there were 5 other companies already doing that. We had a twist. We were the first Windows-based tool to do that, and we were the market leader in 6 months. The second one was a search engine. There were 5 search engines around when we launched our search engine. We had a different sort of twist on that, and that's the one that grew to $500 million just less than 2 years after we launched. The third one was an instant messenger for PC video gamers. There were other instant messengers out there, but ours was great for gamers. You could see what games people were playing in the instant messenger, and if you clicked on their name, it launched you onto the same game server that your friend was playing on. It made it very easy for you to play online with your friend. And that grew very rapidly. That was the MTV bought that one for $100 million less than 2 years after starting. And the fourth one too was another, there was people doing recommendation engines. All right, next slide please. Okay, so speed in all the factors and all the sort of facets of doing a startup. In fundraising, in opening your office, in hiring your team, getting people started, the product development phase, business development, and even speed when changing direction. Okay, next slide please. Okay, go ahead. Next slide. Okay, so raising money in a single day. I raised about $35 million or so of venture capital in 8 different rounds. Some of them were $1 million rounds, some of them were $4 million rounds. In 7 out of 8 of those times, I was able to get a signed term sheet from the investor the same day I presented to them for the first time. And these are some of the things I did. One is, I was raising money when things were in my favor, when the deck was stacked in my favor, but sometimes in a slightly different way than you'd expect. For example, I had signed a deal with Microsoft that was going to announce in about 5 days. And I went to the investor and I said, in 5 days I'm going to announce this big deal with Microsoft. My valuation is going to go up. If you want, you can invest right now, but we got to get this done in the next couple days. That worked. I did it a couple different times. The investor's like, yeah, if you announce that deal, I know your valuation is going to go up. The second thing I do is I try to get all the decision makers in the room. Sometimes in the United States, what happens is you'll meet with a junior person and an investor, and they'll kind of like your idea, and they'll say, why don't you come back 2 or 3 weeks later and meet with maybe a partner, a more senior person. And they'll maybe like your idea, and they'll say, why don't you come back in another couple weeks, meet with a couple partners, or maybe with the partner team. It just stretches everything out. It might take 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks. So what I will do, and I did this even the very first time, so it's not like, sure, I can do it now, but even the very first company I did, I said, this thing I'm working on is moving very quickly. We love you, Mr. Investor, but we need to have all of the people that are required for the decision in the first meeting because it's moving so quickly. Now, some investors will say, shh, go, forget it, I don't want to talk to you if you're that way. But others might say, wow, if you're really that confident, maybe you do have something that I want to hear about. So anyway, that's worked for me. The last thing I do is something I call an if-then contract. And for example, the internet search engine I built, we were selling our product to other search engines. So we got them to basically display our results on their page. And when I went to them, before I even raised any money, I went to these other search engines and I started emailing them. I said, if I can deliver search results to you in 50 milliseconds, very, very short amount of time, and if 80% of your users think that the results I'm delivering to you are better than the ones you're currently showing, would you buy this from me for $1 per 1,000 results? This is at a time they were selling results for $10 per 1,000. And so out of the 5 major search engines at the time, 2 of them emailed me back, yeah, sure. If you actually can deliver results in 50 milliseconds, if 80% of my users think that your results, Mike, are better than mine, yeah, sure. I'll buy them for you $1 for 10 per 1,000. So I walked into the meetings with the venture capitalist having these emails. Now, there's not a binding contract, it's not signed and everything like that, but that was enough for the investors. The 2 things investors often worry about is, will anyone actually buy your product? And can you actually build it? And by having these if-then contracts, these emails, in my hand, it assured the investors enough that they didn't worry about whether someone would buy it or not anymore. Okay, next slide, please. I think we skipped ahead a little bit. Can we go? Yeah, is this right? Okay, opening an office. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, let's go to hiring. Go ahead, next slide. Okay. I don't know exactly what the environment is for hiring in Vietnam. I've heard a little bit that people can jump from job to job a little bit, and that makes it hard to kind of hold on to people. It's certainly tough in Silicon Valley. If you're trying to hire someone, you're getting competition from Google, who's trying to hire them, Facebook's trying to hire them, Twitter's trying to hire them. So this is something that we did with all our startups. We'll have all the interviews happen on one afternoon. And before the candidate even comes in, we assume it's going to be successful. And we figure out what their title is going to be, figure out what their salary is going to be, figure out how much equity we're going to give them. We write up an offer letter, just have it ready to go. If the interview goes terrible, we just tear it up, we never give it to them. But if the interview goes well, at the end of the day, and I'll do an independent reference check in the middle of the afternoon. If it's going well, I will call someone who knows them and get an independent check. Are they as great as they seem? At the end of the day, before the person leaves the building, I'll give them an offer letter and say, congratulations, would you like to join the startup? And I'll say, would you like to accept? And they'll say, whoa, I didn't expect to get an offer right now, and this is very fast. And I'll say, okay, I don't want to rush you. Call me back at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning and let me know that you're saying yes or no. At least in the United States, that stops the counteroffers from happening. It stops, some other big company from trying to get in there. So anyway, that's been very successful for me. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, getting new employees started. I think this is all along the ideas of speed. Speed is essential. I think I think it's really bad if you have a new employee who starts, if they show up and you say, oh, yeah, sorry, I don't have your computer quite ready, I don't have your email account ready, I haven't figured out exactly what project you're going to be doing yet, just read these manuals for a day or two. That's terrible. So when someone starts at one of my startups, every single thing they need, source control software, email address, computer, whatever, it's all done and rolling and tested. And the project is defined. Sit down within the first 10 minutes. Here's the project, here's the targeted deliverables, here's the targeted time frame we want. Boy, does that set the tone for speed. And people, they get it. They're like, wow, this place is moving fast. So anyway, that's one thing we do too. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, product development. This is audience participation time. So if the goal is sort of getting to a successful company, the fastest, which of these do you think is a better way to do your product development? Option A is do incremental development. Build sort of one feature at a time and add features as you go. Or B, I guess, sorry, spec your product very carefully. Do a lot of market research to find out interviews and surveys, what features people want. Because people are not going to try your product once. If you show them sort of something that's kind of bad, they're never going to try it again. So how many people think A is the right answer? Okay? How many people think B is the right answer? Okay? I've had much better luck with A. If you go to the next slide. So for each of these 4 startups I did, the products eventually became very sophisticated and very powerful. Like the computer telephony product eventually was 32 simultaneous phone lines, digital, integrated fax, and all this other stuff. The very first version was only 2 lines, it was analog, and all it could do was interactive voice response. You touch tone in, you do, and it would read information back. Second product, DirectHit was a search engine. The eventual product was extremely sophisticated. I mean, it was the quality of Google type search. But the very first one we released, all it did is we counted how much time people spent on a website. If someone spent 5 minutes on a website, we viewed that as a good website. If they spent 5 seconds on a website, we viewed that as a bad website. But aggregating all this data from around the web for searches people did and then how much time they spent on a website for a certain search gave us a very powerful, simple first version of the product, and that was enough to know that it was a winner. Same thing with Xfire. So having a very simple first version, I think, goes a long way towards letting you then, over time, develop sort of a more powerful product. Okay, next one, please. Okay, business development. So I have this philosophy that I'm always worried, sort of paranoid about things going wrong. And I have this saying in my company is that the probability of a business deal you're working on ever closing, eventually closing, no matter how much time it takes, the probability it will eventually close declines by 10% every day that it doesn't close. I mean, that's a crazy sort of pessimism. Basically saying, I'm working on a deal, I'm really excited about it. If it hasn't closed the next day, there's only 90% chance it's ever going to close. If it hasn't closed the second day, there's only 81% chance it's ever going to close. If it hasn't closed the third day, there's only 72% chance it's going to ever close. So if you really believe this, it changes the way you negotiate with people. And I've certainly seen this in all the negotiations I've done. I've done deals with Microsoft that have closed in less than 10 days. I've done deals with MTV that have closed in less than 10 days, with Google that have closed in less than 10 days. So if I'm on day 2 or 3 or something with a negotiation with the other party, and it's not moving fast enough, I will call them up and I'll say, dude, I don't think we're going to get there. Let's have these things done by 5 o'clock tomorrow, and if we don't have it done by 5 o'clock, I don't want to waste your time, I don't want to waste my time, let's shake hands and just call this deal off. Now people will say to me, what, you're going to say that to Microsoft, you're going to say that to MTV, you're going to say that to Pepsi? And I say, yes, I will. And I say, you're going to risk losing the deal by taking that sort of aggressive approach. And I say, you're going to lose the deal anyway. If you let it string along and along, you're going to lose the deal anyway. Because I think that everyone is busy, and they can only do 2 or 3 things a day. So if you're not in their top 2 or 3 things on the priority list, you're not going to get done. You can't be number 17 on someone's priority list and hope you're ever going to get done. It's just not going to happen. So I will take a bold attitude with people I'm negotiating with. And yes, I lose some deals, but a lot of the deals I pushed on, they close. Okay, we'll skip this one for now. Okay, changing direction. So now you're sitting here thinking, wow, it's so easy, right? You just raise money in one day, you just build your product in 3 months, you just negotiate these business development deals by just being really aggressive. So easy. What could go wrong? So I just want to emphasize 3 out of the 4 startups I did. The first idea we had that I was so confident was so good, it failed. The company didn't fail, but the first idea failed. The first company I was doing was called Dial-A-Fish. That was the name of the company, Dial-A-Fish. And we thought we were going to change the way everyone in the world orders groceries. And we had a total of $1,500 in capital. I mean, we never raised venture capital with that company. I put in $500. Each of my 2 friends put in $500. So it was crazy to think we're going to change the way everyone orders groceries. But what happened is along the way, we learned that the tools we were using to build this product were terrible. And so when we ran into trouble with our first idea, we said, I know what we'll do. We'll just switch gears and make better tools for other people to build these sort of things. And that's what we did. And within 6 months of making better tools, we were the industry leader in computer telephony application development tools. The second one, Xfire. The first idea for the company was called Ultimate Arena. And we thought we were so smart. We're going to let people play these video games against each other to win money. You put up $1, the other person puts up $1. The winner wins $1.75, and Ultimate Arena keeps 25 cents. We thought it was brilliant. It was bad. All these sharks hung out online and took everyone's money, and people didn't want to come back. The first idea failed. But when we were talking to the people who were using the product, we would ask them, what do you like about the product? What don't you like about the product? Why haven't you used it in the past 2 weeks or 3 weeks? They would say things like, well, the only reason I was using your product was it made it easy for me to play with my friends online. With some of these computer games, you play on a central game server, but it's hard for you to play on the same game server your friend is playing on. So after about the 7th time we heard this, we said, okay, why don't we make a product that just does that? And that's what we did. It was called Xfire. Just made it really easy to click on your friend's name and you play on the same game server. That was a product that spreads virally. If you can ever come up with a product that spreads virally, it's the best thing ever. That means the product is completely useless to you unless you get your friend to use it. What do? You go get your friend to use it. And there's all sorts of mathematics around how fast viral products grow. One of them is the rule of 72, which is you divide the growth rate, you divide 72 divided by your growth rate, and that tells you how many times it takes, how long it takes to double your user base. So if you're growing at 3% a day, then you will, in 24 days, you'll double your user base. And that means in 240 days, you'll have 1,000 times as many people using the product. So if you get 1,000 people using your product, 240 days later, you have 1 million people. That's just if you grow 3% a day. So if you ever find a viral product, that's what you want to do. And the last one was Ruba. Again, the first idea we thought was brilliant, it didn't work. We changed direction. But I think the key is how decisive you are about changing direction. In some ways it's a balance, because entrepreneurship is supposed to be about tenacity and hanging in there and never give up. But on the other hand, I think smart entrepreneurs get data. They're like, wow, this product is definitely not working. And they're nimble, and they adjust, and they come up with something different. But you gotta be decisive when you do that. You can't say, well, there's 6 people on the team, the first product's not really working well, let's go have one person spend half their time exploring this other idea. No, that doesn't work. You gotta have everyone immediately shift to the new idea and put sort of all energy into it. Okay, next one. Okay, I think that might be the last one. All right, so the most fun for me in doing these is actually sort of taking questions. So if you guys have any questions, I'd love to try to tackle them. Anyone? Go ahead, please.
Can I ask one question about Project Loon?
Sure. Okay, go ahead.
So initially, I learned that with Project Loon, you guys take a 15-man team to launch a balloon every 2 hours. But now it's already improved to the point where you can launch when a 4-man team can launch 4 balloons every hour. So how do you put it up?
Okay, so the question is about Project Loon, which is another project. Google bought my 4th startup, and most of my friends were like, okay, Mike's going to last about 6 months there before he leaves. But Project Loon, what I'm working on, it's really cool. We're using these balloons 20 kilometers up, 60,000 feet up, to bring internet around the whole world, and it actually works. If you have an LTE phone in your pocket, and there was a balloon within 40 kilometers right now, you get 10 megabits per second down to your phone. That's like 3 times as fast you need to stream videos. So anyway, the question was, a year ago, it was taking us a team of about 14 or 15 people an hour to launch a balloon, and now, with 2 people, you can launch a balloon every 15 minutes. And the question was, how do we do that? Well, we just created this giant crane. It's 20 meters tall, 20 meters wide, 20 meters deep. It has walls on 3 sides, so it blocks the wind in all but one direction. And we just created this giant sort of claw that holds the payload, and then as the balloon is inflated, just slowly the claw swings up and shoots the balloon out. It's all automated. We just had to invest a lot of money in building a giant crane to do that. So other questions about entrepreneurship? Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So my question is, if you are a founder, you are definitely favor for speed because you can build more product, less time, less money. But if you are, for example, I'm an employee, you're a startup, and I don't feel that much speed, how do you inspire or push your team to move forward and keep pace?
Sure. So the question is, how do you get everyone in the company to be so passionate about speed? How do you get people to move faster? So I mentor a lot of startup companies, and inevitably the CEO of the startup will call me and say, hey Mike, yeah, things are going pretty well, but yeah, the team isn't moving as fast as I want them to. How do I get them to speed up? How do I get them to move faster? And I always tell them, you're asking the wrong question at the wrong time. I don't think you can sort of take someone and say, I'm gonna get you to be more driven and more excited and more faster. I think you want to do that in the interview phase. So I try really hard when finding people to find people who have that intensity, that passion, that impatience. And so some of the interview questions I ask will be like, tell me about how you cook dinner. And some people, it's kind of, well, I get a frozen pizza out, and then sometimes I decide when to put it in the oven, and then maybe 45 minutes or sometime it comes out, and then I eat it. Other people are like, I want to eat it exactly 6:15, and I want the broccoli to be a perfect degree of doneness, so I know it takes 7 minutes for the broccoli to get ready, so I put the broccoli in at 6:08, and I know it takes 5 minutes for the water to heat up, so I turn the water on at 6:03. That's the kind of people in an interview, I think, wow, they're going to be sort of focused on speed and excited, so I look for those in the interview phase. Other questions?
Mike, I think before we go on with the Q&A, we can start a fireside interview and follow a Q&A after that.
Okay, so we're going to be switching to a fireside interview.
Okay, so I would like to introduce Anfal, Vice President of INDG Venture, who will be our moderator today.
Cool.